People imagine betrayal as something loud. They picture shouting, plates breaking, a moment that announces itself. But betrayal doesn't need noise. Sometimes it just leaves a pair of unfamiliar shoes by your front door. I remember standing there longer than necessary, keys still in my hand, staring at them. Polished leather, not scuffed, not rushed, placed neatly beside the mat like they belonged. I told myself there had to be an explanation. There always is, until there isn't. Then I heard her laugh. It wasn't the casual laugh she used on phone calls or with coworkers. It was softer, intimate, the kind she hadn't used with me in a long time. When I stepped into the living room, my wife was sitting on the couch next to a man I had never seen before, and before I could ask a single question, she looked at me and said, "I'm opening our marriage." She didn't ask how my day was. She didn't apologize. She just said it, like a conclusion. "If you can't handle that," she added calmly, "you're free to leave." I nodded once, because in that moment I realized she thought she was in control. She wasn't. My name is Daniel Harper. I'm 44 years old. I've spent most of my life being underestimated, and I let it happen because it made things easier. I don't dominate conversations. I don't brag about what I do. I design infrastructure systems, the kind that don't impress anyone until they fail, the kind that keeps everything else standing. My wife, Rachel, used to joke that I was invisible support. At first, she meant it lovingly. Later, it became an insult. We met in our early 30s. She was ambitious, articulate, full of plans. I admired that. I believed in being the steady presence behind her momentum. For years, that worked. I paid attention to details. I handled logistics. I made sure the lights stayed on, literally and figuratively. I thought partnership meant balance. I didn't realize balance had slowly become entitlement. The change didn't happen overnight. It never does. It started with comments. "You're too comfortable. You don't push yourself. Other couples are doing so much more." Then came the new social circle, people who talked loudly about reinvention, people who called stability fear. Rachel started coming home later, dressing differently, speaking to me like I was a junior colleague instead of her husband. When I asked what was going on, she smiled and said, "You wouldn't get it." I stopped asking. That was my mistake. Silence isn't neutral. It's often interpreted as permission. That night, the stranger stood up when I entered the room. Tall, relaxed, confident in a way only someone without consequences can be. Rachel didn't introduce him immediately. She just watched my reaction. I asked, calmly, "Who's this?" She sighed, like I was exhausting her. "This is Mark," she said. "He's important to me." Mark smiled and extended his hand. I didn't take it. Rachel rolled her eyes. "I'm not cheating," she said quickly. "I'm being honest." She explained, not asked, that she had already made a decision, that monogamy felt limiting, that she wanted more experiences, that she deserved fulfillment. Then she crossed her arms and said the line she clearly rehearsed. "I'm opening our marriage. This isn't a discussion." She glanced around the house as she said it. Our house. I asked one question. "How long has this been going on?" She hesitated. "Just long enough." "That doesn't matter," she snapped. "What matters is that I'm being transparent now." Mark shifted uncomfortably. Rachel didn't notice. "If you want to stay," she continued, "you need to accept this. If not, you can move out." There it was, the assumption, the belief that she held leverage. I nodded. "Okay," I said. Her shoulders relaxed. She thought she'd won. I walked into my home office. Rachel called after me. "Don't be dramatic." I opened a filing cabinet she'd never touched. Inside was a folder I'd kept for years, not because I planned this, but because I planned for reality.
When I returned, Mark was sitting again, too comfortable, like he'd already decided where things were headed. I placed the folder on the table. "I need to clarify something," I said evenly. "You think this is your house?" Rachel laughed. "Of course it is." I slid the first document toward her. Her smile faded.
I explained slowly. The house was purchased before the marriage. The title was never changed. She dismissed it as irrelevant at the time. It wasn't irrelevant now. The second document outlined her legal occupancy status. 30 days. Clear, enforceable. Mark stood abruptly. "Whoa, I don't want any part of this," he said. Rachel stared at me like she didn't recognize me. "You planned this," she accused. "No," I replied. "I prepared for reality." She raised her voice. "You're trying to control me." I shook my head. "No, I'm respecting your choice." She wanted freedom. I chose boundaries. Mark was already backing away. "This isn't what I signed up for," he muttered. Of course it wasn't. He was here for convenience, not consequence. When the door closed behind him, Rachel's confidence collapsed. She tried to soften. "We can talk about this," she said. "You're being extreme." I didn't argue. I didn't need to. The decision had already been made. The weeks that followed were quiet, but heavy. Friends reached out. Some told me to compromise. Some told me to forgive. None of them had been handed an ultimatum in their own living room. Rachel moved out before the deadline. The divorce was efficient. She told people I was cold. I let her. I used to think strength meant enduring discomfort to keep peace. I was wrong. Strength is knowing when peace is already gone. Rachel wanted freedom without cost. She forgot something important. Freedom always has a bill, and someone always pays it. That night, she tried to make it me. Instead, I handed her the paperwork, and for the first time in years, I walked back into a life that was finally mine.